little bit's bleeding, so I'm like, whatever.
Okay, so ask him when.
Everything else works,
Okay, perfect.
thankfully.
Tell her I hope she feels better.
I never want to see that again.
I hope she feels better. Because he was so excited about coming. He was in this class. He's a former, right? You too. What?
She said she knew, but she knows that.
Oh, she does? Because I told her to email him. I don't know if she knew him, but I told her that you were going to email him. Okay. Okay, let me just do this.
Man, I forgot to do quiz
No, I
test.
don't if I have more than this.
Oh my god, she's gonna be like out of bubble gum.
No, I'm not. I just lost it.
You just gotta do it.
It's too fast.
You just gotta do it.
Like it was like so like, there wasn't a lot of information out there, so like I didn't go deep.
Where you going?
Oh my god.
Are you going tomorrow? It was so awkward because like I'm not standing in front of the class and like
I mean, I'm like, so
within Sundertown.
you sure where you supposed
He screwed all this over with my neck hurt.
Yeah.
That was my, I know, I don't
But I
even
guess
shake
it's just
that.
such a big school.
The first person I go somewhere like that. I'm gonna look on the schedule actually. I don't know if you have to.
So are you.
Oh yeah, like that. That's good, right?
Yeah, I was gonna post.
She wants us to. Oh, that's why. Yeah, online, but in class too, right?
Yeah, if we have time, I don't know. But
We don't.
No.
even if everyone can see it.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much there was done with taking material.
So let's get our name tags out, folks. We have a lot to do tonight. Another exciting night. And I'll answer any of your questions. I can't believe it. We have one more session and that's it.
That one more session is presentation, so I don't count it as class.
Well, I count it as class because I'm gonna get inspired.
Hey, we're working on PowerPoint. Gotta do that too.
We're gonna be inspired. So, can't believe it.
Right now, I'm just here like, we're getting chemistry.
That's all I hear is they're getting chemistry.
That's the class I need an A in, and it's a struggle, even with Dr. Fackel.
Oh, okay. All right. Can I, let's get our name tags out. Let's start. Let's do a roll. Let's do a roll. And let's make sure, put the date, name, date, and put first name, last name, and phone number. And you want to pass that around? Like, put yourself as number one.
What if I like left it like in the chair?
So James, how'd it go last week? For the interviews and stuff?
Oh, yes, that's perfect. But that was the other week though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked it. Thank you.
So comments, questions? So let's get the name tags out and we can start.
Dr. Rushnick,
Yeah.
you said name, email, and what other component?
Name, put name, first name, last name, email, phone, and put yourself as number one. Okay?
I'm gonna be perfect your name.
No, it's okay, she knows my name.
So Mike, put your name and then let's go. Okay, folks, welcome back. It's been too long, and we'll start again. So today is Wednesday, November 14th. We meet again, what date do we meet again?
28.
Is it 28th?
Next time we meet?
Yeah, next time we meet.
28.
Wow, amazing. Next time we meet on the 28th, we're gonna present your projects. And as I mentioned before, there'll be, it'll be about 7 to 8 minute presentation for your projects. And your projects should be well defined. And I'll go over give some feedback to your projects now. We talked about having some kind of PowerPoint presentation, and along with this, having the links to your website, and also
So you want us to have like a PowerPoint presentation?
I'd like you to start off with a PowerPoint presentation, and in the PowerPoint presentation, then you can put to the section,
The hyperlink to the
the
website.
hyperlinks to your website, the hyperlinks to your apps.
Okay.
And basically, in that section two is what you have. It's also, you know, that what you want probably in your PowerPoints and not necessarily your website are some things that you may not necessarily want to be more detailed explanations. Also your business model. How are you going to sustain your project? Also, the future. We had time limitations here. So what are the next steps for this future? Where are you going to go from there? What needs to be done? Maybe in terms of pilot testing. It may be in terms of getting your back end of your app completed. Maybe the back end, maybe looking at additional, getting additional clients, users. And I'll go over some of your projects now, your websites. As I'm doing this, make sure that you have a link that's clickable on our Blackboard here that I can go straight to clicking it. I'll go over additionally, so for Wednesday, November 28th, we'll have our presentations, And I'll also do a review for the exam. Tonight I'll talk about the additional chapters that will be on the exam. It will be the same format as the last exam with the readings from the book and also open-ended questions. We'll review that on the 28th as well. What else? Today we have a guest speaker, and our guest speaker, I'm happy to announce, was a former graduate of this class. He's a physician in the University of Miami in urology, and he used to be the chair of urology and also works for the VA. And for his project, when he was in this class, he wanted to do a men's institute. What happens is, what turns out all over the world is men don't like to go to doctors. And basically ways in which men can communicate, and what we suggested is he can use collaborative tools to bring men in. So he's going to come in and do some men's institute. He also did a master's degree in translational research at the School of Medicine, which I'm a part of. And what that was is basically trying to bring what's on the scientific bench to bring it to product to consumers and to others. So he did an avatar kind of way in which to teach physicians in training how to do better bedside manners, how to do better social skills. And what I found out is he now is going to do a startup himself. So he's bringing one of his colleagues that he's doing a startup. So he was all excited. Faith and Lauren were doing some of their work, and they want to work with the VA, so I suggested they get in touch with him, and he was just so excited to come. So after his practice today at 6, I think his last patient is at 6, he's coming down here just to be with us. So he should be coming in about another, I'd say in another hour. So if you see him come through with his colleagues. So what I want him to do is talk about that technology in his Men's Institute, basically where he left off when he graduated from this class, and then talk about his startup. Yes? It's not working, the streaming? Okay, so let me just set that up. Thank you so much. So tell Faith that I'm going to start a new stream. Oh, you know what? Tell Faith to go to Steam It at the Psycho.
What?
Let me just do a new one. Thank you so much. We'll just use the same one. Go to steamit.com at the Psycho. And tell her to go to the 5 o'clock class. Click on the 5 o'clock class. And in the 5 o'clock class, you should see this. Steamit.com /@ the Psycho. That also spells my cell number. THEPSYCH, like psych, and the company, CO. No way.
That's your phone number?
Yeah.
That's great.
By the way, if you want, that's part of my research, to do search engine optimization with combining a vanity phone number with a website. So if you want to work with me next semester, you're welcome to it. So this is my cell number as well, the Psycho. So, and tell her to click on the 5 p.m. because I'm just continuing it. And now, if we go in, let's see. It isn't. Is it working? Wait. So let me try again. Let me try it again. Okay, good. So let's do it again. So let me just go to my here's Faith. Ask Faith if she sees it now.
She actually said she got it.
Good, perfect, great. Faith, you can participate and you can ask, we'll see if we'll make it so at least you can check to see if, when she tell her to text you if she has some questions. Okay? Perfect, yes.
I have a quick question about the presentation. When
Yes.
you said you include like links to the website and the app, do you want us to like do a little walkthrough of any, like if we have an app, do you want a little like screenshot walkthrough? Okay.
I want your presentation when we get the remember Gerst that was here in the beginning where he invests in companies? He could sit here and say, this,
Okay.
I can see that I want to invest with you. It doesn't have to be everything complete, but I can see there's a problem, I can see a solution, I can see that the team is serious, the team is somebody, is a group that I want to invest in,
Okay, got
and
it.
they have an articulate issue. So if I go to your BTE 450, let's just do this in the beginning and then I'll cover some more material. Let's go to course documents, and I'm in the first one. So we have, how many groups do we have? 5, 6. Basically here, Kaylee, is Kaylee here? Yeah. So you have, make this linkable, Kaylee. Right, I don't have to tell you. And then is it linkable? No, so make it linkable. Have your neighbors help you if you can't get it linkable. Right, and then I have group 9, 10, 11, right, that I have. Okay, so redo it. Okay. So, basically, if I would, anyone want me to look at theirs specifically? So, did you do yours, Monica? Did you redo it?
Yeah, I made the changes.
So what number are you?
I'm group 11.
Group 11, so let's start with you.
Yeah, last time you said to add separate pages for.
So it's the last one? Which one is it?
No, group 10. Sorry, I made an error. It's group 10.
Okay.
You said to add individual pages for the patient, like family members, and the homemaker.
Okay, what does your page mean?
Your page is like geared towards the elderly person.
It's what?
Geared towards the elderly person. I wasn't sure how else to phrase it.
Maybe put, I don't know, maybe in terms of the patient or something, because your page, I don't know what that means. And loved ones, maybe your family members, it doesn't necessarily, and what's homemaker?
It's like their individual pages. So like they click in and sign.
Who is it? What is a definition of a homemaker?
A homemaker, that's one of the things for the site is that we connect them to like companions and homemakers, and it's someone who will come to their house and take care of them so that they don't have
So
to
a
go to-
caregiver.
Yeah.
So put caregiver, because homemaker sounds like it's like some, it's traditionally been like a housewife or something. So change that to caregiver.
Okay.
And loved ones is family,
Yeah.
so put family.
Okay.
Because maybe all my family isn't loved one, you know what I mean? Loved ones
Okay.
means loved ones means it basically is caregiver, family,
Okay. Yes.
and then like client or something like that.
Okay.
And then are you doing an app with this?
I feel like that'd be the next step because I have no clue how to make an app.
Well, then you want to look for those look for free app development software, just like Wix. Did you know how to make a website? Right? You didn't need to be a programmer. Same thing with app development of creating the screens where you're going to create the screen. And then in this case, do you have about who's the team here?
We have our pictures up. Do you want
Where is that
at
list?
the bottom?
So I make a tab for I make a tab for, and you talk about what are each person doing?
No.
So I make another tab of the team,
Okay.
okay? Okay, so let's go the other way. Okay, so Liz, Kyle, and Monica here, so, have you done anything different? Group 11, Anastasia, and then Ricky and Chelsea, what?
Yeah, we made a few changes, like we changed our pictures.
You added a logo, a slogan.
Okay, do I need to look at it?
If you want to.
Okay,
Yeah, everything loads in, like, you have to scroll slowly. But
Okay.
here's us.
okay. Okay, and then this is read more or what?
Yeah, we're gonna make that button work. We just
Okay,
haven't
but
yet.
at least have a description of each of them, right?
Yeah.
Make it simple, right? Folks, a lot of this stuff, a lot of these critiques, you can critique your own. It's not tech, you know what I'm talking about here is when you look at it, and you can send a link to your parents and have them give you feedback, you know, and give other people feedback. Folks, if you want to speak to each other, please text each other. Okay? That, you want, Lorna, you want to ask Faith if she hears me? So that she can, hear in this case. Okay, Sean, Deb, and Isaiah, what's new here?
So, we're gonna wait for Sean, because Sean is not here right now, but we're gonna try to, if you go to the about, sorry, not about, sorry, conditions, I apologize.
What?
You mean conditions.
Conditions, we don't know why it's not updating, but we're gonna, once you click the consultation, we're gonna add another page that shows the insurance plans.
Okay.
And then once you click on the insurance plan, say you want to select that insurance plan, we're gonna have a list of doctors,
Okay.
petition groups, and then we're building that up. Right. I don't know why it's not showing up right now, but
Okay, you work on it, okay? And then about this is about what? This is-
about, yeah,
And what about your team?
Yeah, keep it going now. It's not edited right now.
Okay,
It should be, but I don't know why it's not showing up.
okay. And Deb, is this you?
No, I just put my photo, that's not me.
Another life or what? What are we doing here?
It could be me. It's part of the format.
Okay, part of the format?
Part of the format, yeah.
Okay,
I don't know why it's not updating.
okay, all right, so you'll check it out. Okay.
No, it updated.
Okay, and, any others, and then what are we doing here?
Oh, that's
We
why.
have a new website, like, it's currently being shown on.
Oh, it's not this one?
No, that's the one we showed you last week.
Okay, all right. And what about Gabriella and, Gabrielle, Kelly, and Danielle, what's up here? Has this been updated or what?
Yeah, we're like editing it now. We were
Okay, so I didn't, okay. So everybody understand the idea, and then, group 5, did we,
Rosa, she said that, it's echoing and it's going in and out.
huh? It's going in and out?
Yeah.
change that background. Distracting.
All-
No, I purposely put it up there. No, but I think it's important to be the first one to use it.
Yeah, they're having problems. Try to tell her to try to, mic, put a mic. Yeah, set her up.
You're right.
To stop her mic. Yeah, so there's issues there. Yeah. Tell her to, plug in her mic.
I just did. I'm trying to change the
Okay.
It's-
Any other questions? Any other ones that I need to, look at here? And what about yours, Lorna?
We didn't make changes.
I changed
You
it
did
from
not.
text to button.
Okay.
I got rid of the underline.
And group 3?
Yeah, I added some screenshots of the app that we're working on. It's not on the website though.
Okay, so yeah. And what about your website? Have you
Yeah, we
made-
changed the website too.
So you, is this the right link?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's new here that I need to look at?
Basically everything, we like redid the whole thing.
Okay, you suffer from type 2, okay.
Cause like we had to change our whole kind of concept,
We talked about it,
Yeah.
right? I think this is a better idea that you, kind of concentrate on one,
Yeah.
and then you can, and you know what would be interesting? Is to look at, there's a lot of wearables, there's a lot of mobile tech going into this area, and maybe you could even have a section for the future, even taking a couple of those where you're gonna be reviewing a lot of the mobile apps, the IoTs that are available in, diabetes, that this is an area that it's so prevalent. Plus, type 2, what I like about type 2 is you can reverse it, you can do things to help with it, and you may have some areas, I think, here of actual review, so I can even take a few of the products and use those as prototypes, is this will be an area for reviews, and you can have it two ways.
Yeah, that's good.
It's similar to what I was talking to James's group, where they're gonna do like the wearables, is have the vendors send in and have groups of people throughout the world actually evaluate it. Have people that have type 2 diabetes actually be the testers of it.
Yeah, because I feel like there's not a good place for that right now, and like, people don't really have good customer reviews right now, so this could be a good homepage for that.
A good homepage for the reviews, plus you can have credibility,
Right.
rather than I'm just, you know how a lot of times in social media, where you have the influencers, they're getting paid by these companies, and I think that's a great product. But rather a serious, almost like an academic environment that you can review these. So I put another section on that of reviews, and then you can get the content from vendors, and then you can get a group of people saying, I'm willing to have it, and also educate these people of where you can get education, and then you can even use collaboration tools where you can get groups of people together talking about what happens with type 2 diabetes, plus having physicians talk about it, podiatrists to talk about it, giving education, showing healing wounds.
Yeah, I would do that, yes,
Okay.
yeah.
All right? Does that help? So let's look at it that way. Okay, Corey, Nico, and Ty, what's up?
We made changes.
And what can you tell me?
About Us is fixed.
Okay. And what else?
Ties on to the best part. We fixed that. Our service, sort of more along the lines of our business model.
Okay, so what else needs to be done?
We're working on, because we're doing like a blockchain sort of thing, and we want to have like, we're gonna technically have an ICO.
Folks. What?
Without officially creating one, we want to like sort of show that on this.
Yeah, you need almost like diagrams, almost step by step of what it's gonna be. And part of it you can show here, and part of it you can show in your, and possibly in your PowerPoint more detail. But this needs to be, done.
Just like
Step,
what they would do to get like one of these coins.
but also what the model is, rather than what they would do with these points. Okay, what else? Any other ones you want me to? Don't tell me I lost everything.
Where did you say you uploaded the PowerPoint for the guest speaker that came in? The one that didn't know what to do with her business because she didn't know anything about AI?
Yeah, let me go back to courses. So I'm gonna go to courses, Miami. Anyone else? You can stay with me afterwards. So let me just go to courses. and I'll go to our regular section of 450. I'm gonna go to course documents. I'm gonna go to, I believe it was in the PowerPoint. Let's see if I put it there. In the PowerPoint. Chelsea? In the PowerPoint. And open in new window.
Okay, got it.
Open when done. Right? She had a good PowerPoint. Her issue was she didn't understand.
Essentially, wasn't she trying to do the same thing last week? Last week, a speaker tried to do quotations.
Yeah. But the one last week wasn't doing anything on blockchain.
Yeah, no, she was doing everything.
The whole idea is in blockchain. So basically, she shows the team. This is what yours should look like. She did the PowerPoint. She has they basically took her. They're trying to get investors, and that's what. Dan, that's what I wanted you to do, is try to get investors. You got your team, you can just, maybe you don't have the PhDs and the MBAs, but you guys can do it of where the team is, what are today's healthcare needs, right? What's her approach? We're guided by the applications. What's the market look like? What's the needs to create the opportunity, right? Who are the competitors? What are the advantages? Her issue was the problem of she wasn't able to explain this part. But she had the good slides. The value proposition. This is kind of even nice, the business model that you have. The other part that I want you to add is also, what is the future?
Is this PowerPoint on Blackboard?
It's on Blackboard under your PowerPoint. That's the beauty. So you can use it. But I'm just telling you, my contention with her was not the issue of her PowerPoints. Her PowerPoints were fine. And she just depended. She just said, that's my programmer. Those questions are for my programmer. I didn't ask her to do the coding, but she should understand what is behind it. Just like when you're going to be doing your blockchain, I'm not asking you to code it, but you would be able to understand what is the model and what's happening here. So it's with all our other PowerPoints. Okay, did that answer your question? Questions? Okay, the next part. Let me do chapter 11 as well. So I'm going to go to chapter 11. I'm going to go over 11, 12, and 13 tonight to make sure that everybody understands what are the main issues and what do I need to do. So let me start here. I'm going to enable editing. And I'm going to go to my slideshow, and I'm going to go from current.
I think I came up with a better idea. So, here's a genius idea I came up with. You hover over the
So
image.
basically, folks, when I'm dealing with data, what do I need to do? I have to have standards in my data. We talk data, and that's really the key. If I talk about what are the trends in IT, what are the trends in healthcare, it's what? I want to have, of course, better outcomes. I want to reduce my costs. I want to increase my revenues. I want to get closer to my customer, which are my patients, and I want to have better outcomes. When I'm going to be doing any of the technology now, the whole reason for the technology is to be able to assess where I am in terms of my present situation and also where I can forecast. In order to do this, I need to be able to share my data, and I need to have health IT standards. Those standards are important for data exchange. We talked about the data exchange, and if I have standards, then I can exchange my data because I have something called a data dictionary. A data dictionary defines my fields, and I can use my naming convention I can map one system to another. This is the key. We always talked about this. The data exchange, the content, and then we have these functional standards. Now, when we have functional standards, they have something called ad hoc. You need to know what ad hoc means. Ad hoc means on the fly. Ad hoc means that I don't have to define in advance. De facto is going to be basically the default. You can think about another word for de facto is default. And of course, I have government mandates. In the United States, I have HIPAA regulations. Other governments have other health care. We also talk about with the standards. And then I have what we call consensus, that I have a number of parties agreeing. They have something called ANSI. You can look that up later on, but ANSI is a National Standards Institute, American National Standards of Institute, and does it just deal with healthcare? And everybody understand my question? What's my question, James? Is ANSI just for healthcare data? Everybody understand the question? So what's the answer?
No.
No, it's basically, it's all standards, right? If I'm talking about the shipping industry, if I'm talking about university, if I'm talking about the publishing industry, they're basically national standards set up, and these standards for these accredited ones. One of the things that we talk about is HL7 standards, which HL7 is called Health Level 7, and what's the purpose of HL7? You'll need this for your test. We'll have a test sometime. So we'll need this for the test. So what is it? What's HL7? Isaiah, what's HL7? If we don't know, what do we do?
Google.
We look it up, right? I'm not the only one working tonight here. You're working too.
It's a set of international standards for transfer of clinical and administrative data between software applications.
Okay, so is it just for the U.S.? What does it say?
No.
It's international, right? So the idea, you can put in your notes here that this is an international standard. What's the whole purpose of it is to what? Exchange data, right? Health data. And how are they doing that exchange of data is, what did I say? There has to be some kind of definitions of the fields. So before I talked about it, I talked about markup language. You remember that? ML, markup language, and not only all these acronyms, Ricky, right, is machine learning, and it's also markup language, right? So ML stands for markup language. Markup language is traditionally, and that's been coming through the old publishing days, is how do you get a markup language, is that you have less than and a greater than sign, and you have what we call tags. You can put them in your notes. We have predefined tags, and one of the predefined tags is something called HTML. HTML. And that stands for what? Anybody remember? And why do we care? Because we can look it up. It stands for Hypertext Markup Language. So anytime you're on a website, right, and the look and the feel of a website, that's done with HTML. So the font size, right, the title, those are all part of tags that are predefined. Title and the end of the title. That's predefined HTML. There's something called, and that is, you can put it in your notes, that is how on a website, using a browser, how the content will look, how it will be formatted. Everybody with me? There's some other markup language which is called XML. ML stands for what, Cindy? What's the ML stand for? Help her out. Help each other. Markup language, right? I know, it's a long night. Markup language, right? The X really stands for what? Extensible. And what does that mean? And once you understand it, you'll see it. What did I say HTML was? It was predefined tags. About what? The look and the feel. XML is what we really call metadata. Have you heard about metadata, Danny? You're my big data analytics guy, right? You're supposed to be knowing this stuff. And what is it? What does metadata mean?
An enormous amount of data. Like, I don't know. I don't know the exact definition by heart, but I'm assuming that.
Not by heart. You don't have to have it by heart. You have to have an understanding. So,
Yeah,
we'll get it done. So the next time when you have an interview, you'll just snap that off, right?
Yeah.
That you won't say it's a lot of data. So what is metadata?
It says it's a set of data that describes other data.
Okay, I'll tell you what it is. What did I say HTML is? HTML is the look and the feel of data. Metadata is about the data. It's not specifically Ricky. It's not specifically Chelsea, but it is that's a name. That's first name. If I'm talking about, you remember we looked at the stock market? Give me what metadata would be in the stock market. It's not IBM, but it's what? The symbol. It's not the number 200 but it's what? The open. It's not 250, but it's what? The close. So it's describing the data. So you remember what they used in metadata when they were looking for terrorists? You remember after the Patriot Act and 9/11, the government was listening to phone calls. Especially they were looking for, anybody know that, anybody hear of Edward Snowden? Edward Snowden was basically revealing that the CIA and so forth were basically looking at phone calls of who was calling whom. A call was coming in, let's say, from, Pakistan to the U.S., or a call was calling from the U.S. to Pakistan or Afghanistan. That is what we call metadata. So we're able to see it was at a certain time, but we don't have all the specifics. That's the data. So what's the purpose of that? That's the metadata. That's kind of the data that we're talking about. So what is XML? Is that users can create their own tags. Put that in your notes. XML, users can create their own tags. So for instance, let's say we were a publisher in the publishing industry. What kind of tags would we want? Author, what else?
ISBN.
Title, what else? ISBN, what else? The year that it was written. How many pages it has. The publisher. We would create, as a publishing group, create our own tags. and we would decide as a group, we're an industry of publishing, these are our XML tags, and why do we want to do it? Because one publishing company would work with the others, and then you can say is find me all, and then we could have like subject, find me all those books in finance and healthcare. With the author of Rush. From 2017. Yes.
So, can you, is it like safe to say to define XML, it's like, or metadata, I'm sorry, is data without being processed?
No, but it's rather a data definition.
Okay.
Data tag. It's not that it's not data process, but it's the data tags. So I can find me all stocks, healthcare stocks, or even I could say find me all medical equipment stocks that are between opening price 100 and 150. If we have the metadata, if we have the XML that we define, we can find it. But if you call it opening and I call it beginning price, the computer, I don't care what they say about artificial intelligence, still can't relate opening price with open. So we decide as together. So what's HL7 then? Who can tell me? Given that fact that I talked to the publishing, what does it seem that HL7 would be?
It's the guidelines for the standards.
It's basically predefined health tags. Doesn't it make sense now? That the health industry said we're going to have predefined tags, and why do they want it? Because if I'm at one hospital, right, and I want to share it with another hospital, and what did we say, Deb? Was it international or was it for the U.S. only?
International.
International, and I go to France, and we're all using the HL7 standard, will I be able? And then, Cindy, if I want to get population health data, isn't it great if I had HL7 standards and I said, find me all those patients that have type 2 diabetes, right, that are female and are between 20 and 30 years old. If I don't have that standards, I don't have those basically it's extensible, and we've decided on the HL7, we've decided on those tags. Everybody with me? Does that make sense? They make a big deal out of it, and these are old ways that they used to have it called what? Electronic data interchange. What is it? The exact same thing that we were talking about before is that data interchange is still the same. So you can see here there are other organizations. You don't have to worry about that, but that vocabulary has to be the same. That's all they want, that I can share data. Notice it's all kind of giving the same language that I can do it. Those standards of my HL7 standards are the same. And notice here are other standards. If I can standardize them, we can talk to each other. Just like the same idea with language, right? If we speak different languages, I'm going to need some translator in between. And notice what they want for the HL7 is number 4. What's 4 say here, Cindy?
Population health support.
And what is it? Doesn't it make sense? If it's an international standard, I want to do population health. How do I know if there's not going to be another Ebola coming through? And how do I get that? And how do I have in this one, in 7, trust infrastructure, and that I can trust it? And that's sometimes where they're thinking maybe in the future we'll have blockchain, because then we can have trustworthiness. And it's the same thing that we were talking about before, are those standards development. I'm going to finish with that. So you can see here, those summaries, they have examples of those summaries, but that's basically what it is think about it. If you had to even write about it, it's the way in which I can exchange information. I have to get some kind of standards. And the HL7, they're using predefined tax, just like I would do in the stock market or in any industry. I create my tag. So instead, in the stock industry, I would create then one tag that says the symbol, right? Another tag would be what? Open price. Remember how we did the thing? Another one would be close price. Another one could be volume. Another one could be what industry it was. And it could be like the sub-industry. So not only healthcare, but it could be medical devices. And the same thing that I would do with health. It's the same idea with the HL7. Questions? Easy when you know it, right? Now, in chapter 12, they're talking about IT strategic plan. And what the heck does that mean? Doesn't that sound good? IT strategic plan. And I want to convey to you this evening that it all makes sense and they just use words around it to try to confuse us. What do I want to do? If I'm in an organization, I want to use IT not for IT's sake, not for just technology's sake, but what? To better my company, to better my goals. And that's what I want to do. And when they talk about the importance of an IT strategic plan is, why am I using IT and what should I, and if I just leave it to my IT group, what will they do? They'll just buy more fancier equipment and they won't even think about, will this help the company? So the idea of IT strategy is looking at a way to align what's the goal of my company with what's the goal and the use in IT. And they basically start with looking at an IT asset with applications, like if I have an EHR system, and the question becomes, not only should I purchase an EHR system, but when should I change it? When should I upgrade it? And last week, we had Modernizing Medicine. Remember? Dr. Ilana Oberstein. And what was unique about that company? Who can tell me? Yeah.
More focused in the specific field.
So how do they differ than any other EHR system? So if I go to something like Practice Fusion, anybody hear about them? Practice Fusion is based in California, in Silicon Valley, in San Francisco, and they are an EHR system too. Their cost for an EHR system, anybody know their cost? They're built in Silicon Valley. What do you think their cost is for a physician? Any ideas? Take a guess.
$5,000 a year.
5,000. Any other ideas? Isaiah, what do you think their cost is? This company called Practice Fusion, It started as the company, you can see here on their website, Meet the EHR that's independent. This looks a little bit, they have blue and white, right? And easy to use EHR that saves you time, makes your practice more efficient, intuitive charting, send anywhere, HIPAA compliant, doesn't it sound good? ONC, what's cloud-based EHR mean? What does a cloud-based EHR mean?
It's saved on like the internet instead of saved at a centralized server.
Right, it basically, is it on premise or is it in the cloud?
The cloud.
The cloud, basically it's hosted by someone else, it's subscribed, how do I get to it? Via a browser, right? Quality payment, meaningful use. Now we know all these terms, aren't you excited? And you have all these terms, ONC, which is what? What's ONC? Look at this, and we understand all this, right? They got pictures, get paid faster, enhance patient care, right? Help you when you need it, one platform, always done, learn more. And then what does it have? I love everything about it's easy, my staff loves it, there are no headaches, we fall in love with it every time we log on. Your practice, our purpose. IC10, look at this, charting. Doesn't this look like everything that we learned in the book, right? As Google, Facebook, sites, company products, right? Company. Anybody still find out how much it costs? It's called Practice Fusion. Look it up. Cost of Practice Fusion. Everybody signed in?
No, it's not.
What's the cost? Everybody is,
I tried to look it up, but it asked you to get a quote.
okay. Start off with, anybody can find it?
It says as of summer 2018, it's around $100 monthly.
Okay.
So that's a lot. $1,200 a year for
Okay,
that.
started off free. How much Facebook cost? Free. Started free.
But it does say that you have to do an installment charge.
They're starting now, because now they need to make money, but in the beginning was actually free. So, the question is, how are they different than modernizing medicine? The structure. What was there, what did you learn from last week with Oberstein?
That they're setting it up so that the only information you get is based on your specialist in practice.
So it's specialty driven, broken down, what else?
Good
What did
user
you think?
interface,
What?
good user interface.
A good, and what else? What's the key? How did they decide on the interface? Who decides on the interface?
Surgeons or doctors.
Okay, and that's the key. That their physicians, they taught them what?
Had it come.
JavaScript. And, did you hear what else she said?
XML.
XML. Right? And XML is not hard. It's XML is just tags with those that are setting those up. But why is it important? To be able to have it data-driven and that. So I really think in the future that is a clever idea of getting teams of people to work together. The coders, the engineers, the mathematicians, the physicists, and the individual healthcare providers. So that is going to be key in what they're doing. So think about, you need to know what a IT asset is. Data is an IT asset. My staff members are IT assets. My analysts, my programmers, and now notice in IT staff, when they think about the IT, they need to deal with those end users, and the end users are getting to have different roles. And what needs to be the challenge here is how do I make sure my IT group is in alignment with the goals of the organization? And that becomes those emerging parts here is, now there's something called the Gartner Group. Anybody ever hear about them? Put it in your notes. Danny, did you ever hear about the Gartner Group? Okay. Basically what the Gartner Group is, it's IT research company. And they basically tell executives what are the latest trends in technology. And they're a research group that does research that are pretty prevalent. And basically, Gartner has said that there's something called a hype cycle. And Danny, what do you think a hype cycle is? What's hype?
Hype?
Yeah.
Like what's popular?
What's exciting, right? And sometimes hype gets over-exaggerated. Overhyped. So basically, what they say here is technology follows basically a path where in the beginning, only the really techie people use a certain technology, and then it gets overhyped, and people get overexcited, and it's almost like too excited. And then it kind of like dies down. It's almost like fads of what really happens. So basically, in what gets produced, so when you think about the Gartner Group, they have said with all technology, you get your early adopters, and then you get basically overhyped, and then you get your masses done, and then you'll see whether it stays. Part of the thing, you know, the cryptocurrency and blockchain, probably last year was overhyped. It's interesting in publicly traded companies, conference calls. What are conference calls in publicly traded companies, Steph? Have you ever heard of a conference call in a publicly traded company?
Is it between like the board of trustees and stockholders?
It's basically what every quarter they have to talk to the public, and a lot of times they talk to investors, they'll talk to the press, and they'll tell them what's the situation basically at the end of a quarter on what's the forecast of my company, how did my company do in the past, and what do I foresee. In conference calls last year, a huge number of companies said we're going to be using blockchain, or in the future we're going to have blockchain. Their stock market rose if they mentioned those words. They did research, and if they mentioned the word blockchain, Dev, their stock rose.
I remember one company somewhere in Virginia or Delaware or something like that. Last year they changed the name of the company, and I forgot what the name was, but it was a simple name, and then they changed it to blockchain.
What? Right, and then there's
the stock rose. And
Kodak did that. Kodak. Anybody hear of Kodak? Dying company, right? All the time they were making film. You know, they weren't even in the digital marketplace. In the beginning of the year, they ended up saying, we're going to go blockchain. Their stock market went through the roof, right? And then they didn't even implement. This year, the conference calls, there was a decrease in the number of mentioning blockchain. Anybody want to take a guess what percentage it went down this year?
10%?
10? Any others? 80%. From the hype, so the question is where's that technology going? From the high end, every schmo, right, was blockchain, whether they even knew what it meant, to others going through that. So you can see here on that hype cycle, it can be the same. So the Gartner Group, you can think about it, and here what you need to know is that my organization has to use technology to make it better, my organization, and for healthcare to get better outcomes, not just to hype it. Not because some guys in IT want to play with some technology, or that we think that we're going to hype it. And those IT assets, we have to look at them and their costs and their benefits based on the application, the infrastructure, my members I have on the team, whether I have them locally or I'm gonna outsource them. So that's that chapter. Okay, and the next one, let me just show you, this is chapter 13. It's something called IT governance. What's governance? Yeah.
The access to the system and who manages it?
Basically, think about a government, right, or a governor. Basically has to manage, and what happens is, in IT governance, it's basically who is going to manage what's happening in IT. Wow. Welcome, welcome. Good to see, we got a whole crew here. You can sit right here. So we'll be waiting for you. Great. Do you have any slides or something that you want to show too?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to? You have them online. You have them in.
So I got it on my laptop and on my Google Drive.
Okay.
She's a star. I'm gonna lead up to her though.
Okay. So we can. You can even put in your Google Drive. Can you send it to me or?
Absolutely.
Okay. Just send. You have my email.
Okay, can I plug in?
Yeah, we can plug it. We'll see what we can do. Okay. So if you can send it to me, it'd be great. So basically, you got to figure out into this IT governance here. Basically, you got to think about the ideas of who's going to be in charge, who owns the data, and who's responsible. That's the key. Because a lot of times in management, you'll see that you can't leave it all to the IT staff, but rather management has to be responsible and lead into this and take responsibility. So basically you're thinking about the board now, you're thinking about your relationships with IT, and also the budget, who's going to be responsible for the budget of IT. Thinking about the failures of projects has to be a global one. And then if we even think about combining the end users, management, and IT have to be working together in groups. And how they can be effective. So you can read through this. It's pretty simple in terms of concepts, but you just have to make sure that the competitive value of IT is going to be dependent on the responsibility of senior management. They have to get involved. Okay? So, how would you guys like to, I'm glad, Dr. Kava, you brought a whole team here.
Yeah.
This is like, Dr. Kava was our.
I was sitting right there.
Right, see? So Dr. Kava was a graduate. You too can come back and present and bring a whole team with
That's
you,
right.
right? He knew nothing before, right? He was just a simpleton, huh? And now look at him. He has a whole team.
I still am.
Right. So why don't we do this? Why don't we take like a 5-minute break, and then we can get you guys set up, and we'll come back. We were excited to have Dr. Kava. I was telling them that this is a graduate, and also we'll introduce you. You want to just introduce yourselves, and then you can give them like a little short thing, and then we can get set up.
Sure. Well, I'm Bruce Kava.
You can stand up. You come over here, you remember it.
I was a
oh,
former
well.
student here. I was in her
Right,
class.
right.
She was great. She's amazing, I have to tell you. So I was sitting where you guys are sitting a couple of years ago.
Right.
And so I'm with the Department of Urology. And, as a urologist, I do a lot of weird things. And, we do a lot of surgery, a lot of clinical work. But I thought I wanted a little bit more out of my career.
And so I went back and I did a master's degree in clinical and translational research, and that's how I wound up meeting Dr. Rushnick. I wound up doing some of the coursework had to do with computers, and we'll talk a little bit about it, because I think there's so many options. You guys are amazing. I wish I was sitting there right now, just starting my career. I kind of started a little late in life trying to figure this stuff out. But you guys are right at the beginning, and to get this stuff now, at this point, and with so many things that are going to be opening in the future, it's just incredible. The opportunities are just amazing. And so I don't know how many of you guys are involved in, this is all healthcare, right?
Yeah, it's exact same class
Okay.
as you
You
have.
guys-
So
I
it's
got the
a
answers for
combination.
sale, by the way, if you want answers for the exams, you guys.
So, and what did you do for your project, you can tell them? Well, we did the
we'll
men's
talk about that.
internship.
Yeah,
Well,
we'll
we'll
talk
talk
about
about
that.
it. So he did the exact project that I'm telling you, so. And it was interesting, we had a nice team, because basically, when we had Dr. Kava, we came up with his idea, and then we said, we'll have other students be part of his group. So basically,
We set up actually a men's health website, which was pretty neat. I mean, it was amazing. We'll talk a little bit about men's health in a couple of minutes. I'll kind of lead into because we have some really cool stuff. And Elnaz is working with a company called Medox, and they've developed a really cool platform. And part of what we'll be discussing is just men are a different species, okay, from the get-go. As a urologist saying that, as a man saying that, we are different, okay, from so many different aspects. And I guess we'll do after the break.
yeah, let's just even take so we can get set up, let's take a real short break, because the problem with a break is like me starting to run. After I break for the run, I'll never continue running. So let's just take a real short break, and let's even less than 5 minutes, and then we'll come back to it, okay? And then I'll set you up, because we're doing the same thing, we're broadcasting, so I want to, just like we did before,
Great.
right? And when Dr. Kava, I remember even you were in England, and then you were part of our, you remember you came
She
in
wouldn't give me the day
online.
off. I mean, I was in England on a family vacation,
Right.
and it happened to be right around the holidays, and you can't stay away from class. You're going to call in, and you're going to watch the class from there. So.
Right, so we have one, as a matter of fact, Faith, who, sent an email to you, she's not feeling well, so she's online as well.
So it's funny
Okay,
because actually I was online. She had my picture up there, and I sat in front of Big Ben to make everybody jealous. So
Right,
Big Ben,
right, so he was in London as well. Okay, so let's do this, so what do I need to, so that's why I wanted to do it from my machine, if you had something that I could,
I can share the Google Drive with you.
okay, all right.
Can I plug right in? Because
Yeah.
it's a lot of space. That's all.
Okay, all right, so fine, so we can plug in, so.
And then after that, I can plug in.
Okay, yeah, because I'll need it to yours.
Okay, so, all right, so let me just get the guys, let's see if we have the connection.
This just takes a regular connection.
Okay. All right, so let me just see if I have the connection, so let me just call up our
Albert is our nurse supreme. She's gonna tell me whether this is reasonable or not.
I'm so glad. Hi, we're in 312. Can you help us hook up? We got a Mac Pro here. I don't know. I'll check.
I just need a USB.
Yeah, USB, yeah. All right, so let's see. Okay. Great. So you've done a lot, so you have now, well, I'll hear it, huh?
Okay.
Oh, okay,
This plugs right in.
no, try this.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Oh, it'll fit in this.
So I can't do it through my,
This one gonna
And then this will fit into this?
no, you just have to give it to you, and then you give it.
Oh, the USB, right?
No, but you know, is there a way that I can show it on my computer?
Yes, for me.
Yeah, for you? Yes, okay, and what do you have on yours?
I was just gonna introduce some of the men's health topics and stuff.
Oh, okay, you have it on a PowerPoint?
I was on PowerPoint. Yes, but.
So send it.
Let's see what-
The app was nice and updated with everything except the picture.
Did you put it on Google
I'm sending you my PowerPoint.
You sent this to me. Did you send it around? Okay, is this it? Is this it? Yes. Okay, and did you send it to? Is this Kava's presentation or no? This is mine. Okay. Okay, right, but this is the company we're for. This will be easier now that you don't have it. I'm hooked up. I think we're okay. I'm gonna hook it up to my computer. I think we're,
Do you know how to hook this into a USB?
No, but I'd rather have it here since we're
Okay.
we're doing it.
Well, I'm
from
sending you
here.
my first one here.
Okay, so send me your first. You sent it already? Yeah. Yeah. Wait a minute. What? So we got this, right? You want me to say I understand?
I sent you the first.
And then this one, right? Okay, this one? Okay. You want to go first then?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What do you need?
I added some demos to the PowerPoint and I'm really sure.
Okay, so you want me to go where?
The next morning at 10 a.m. If you come up with me.
Yeah. Start presentation. Yeah, I think it'll do it. Just need to start presentation. Yeah, now it works. Okay. So you got it? Do you have anything else you need? Nope. Okay, folks, welcome back. Yeah, I think we're okay, right? You got this on the PowerPoint, right? This is you? Okay.
And do you have clicker? The clicker, is it connected?
I don't know. So I can click before you. Okay. Slideshow. Current slide. Okay. Folks, welcome back. So, I'll dance with you. Okay, folks. So we're good.
So one of the coolest things about what I do is I deal with a lot of sex, okay? Guys like sex. We're gonna talk about why it's important. It's really important. Sex is important. It's very important. Very, very important for everybody, including men, particularly men, because that's the only thing that gets into my office. We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes, why. But what I'd like, this was a part of a presentation I just presented to the Sexual Medicine Society of North America. There really is a society, the Sexual Medicine Society. They're not a bunch of weirdos also. They're not like walking around half naked with like, you know, Adam and Eve outfits on. They are, it's a real thing. We're doing a lot of work actually in sexual medicine to explore a lot of the basic science behind it, because there's a lot of stuff that we don't understand. And even just, you know, you guys see every commercial you see on TV for a Viagra tablet, that came about because of basic science research. We don't have the women's part of that yet. We're starting to develop it, but right now we have the men's, and that's part of my presentation, is to talk about men in general, because that's what I deal with on a day-to-day basis as a urologist, and just to explain where ultimately Elnaz is going to give the keynote speaker. She's going to be the keynote speaker because we have a platform that we've developed, that she's developed, that I think is really cool. But just some basic information about men. You know, the title of this topic was given to me, the intersection between sexual health. Sexual health for men is very much related to physical health and men's health itself. There are problems that men have as they get older, notably erectile dysfunction, which is failure to achieve or maintain an erection hard enough or long enough for satisfactory sexual relations. But as men get older, about 50% of men between 40 and 70 will develop erectile dysfunction. And we know from studies, and this is, I mean, a lot of people say, well, you guys are a bunch of quacks, or you're interested in like these crazy things and men's boners and all that, but it's a lot more than that, because when it comes down to it, the studies have shown, and we'll go through some of the slides later, that men that suffer from erectile dysfunction, within 3 to 5 years later, a significant number of them will have a major cardiovascular event.
Wow.
So there is a physiologic basis for the erectile
That's
dysfunction, and it's mostly related to circulatory effects, blood flow disturbances. The same blood flow that occurs in the penis occurs in the heart, occurs in the blood flow to the brain, and strokes, heart attacks, and premature death. 40% of men, their first heart attack will die. They will not survive, which is absolutely outrageous. I saw a guy today in the office who I diagnosed with bladder cancer, and I'm treating him. He called me to say that he was having a lot of urinary symptoms. He's a young guy. He's like 56 years old or so, pretty active. He smokes, smokes a little bit here and there. And he came in with his wife, and they were thanking me because he called me about 6 weeks ago. He was in the middle. We just diagnosed him with bladder cancer. I treated it. I'm starting on some medical therapy to prevent recurrences. But he was also having some urinary symptoms for his prostate. Very healthy guy. We put him on some medication. Called me up about 3 days later. I'm having some chest pain. I think I looked on the prescription, and it says that you can get chest pain. I'm just gonna wait till I see you in the office. I said, no, you have to get to the emergency room right now. Turns out he had a major occlusion of his left anterior descending artery, which is called the widowmaker. Okay, he had been having these intermittent bouts of chest pain for a while, it turned out, and he kind of ignored it. That's what men do. They kind of ignore their medical problems. They're taught at a very early age, you gotta be strong, you gotta be self-reliant, independent, and if you get sick, well, either fend for yourself or just shake it off, like the athletes do in a baseball game. Shake it off. You got a little injury, forget about it. But a lot of these times, but as you'll see, physical fitness does not necessarily indicate physical health. So what I presented to the Sexual Medicine Society was that we have 5.6 million people here in South Florida. 48% of those are men, okay? And the vast majority, despite public opinion, a popular opinion about South Florida, the median age for men is 38 years old. So it's a prime group of people to look into. And when you look up men's health centers, so you'd think that maybe a men's health center would be a place that a guy would go for erectile dysfunction, but also for his heart, if he has any other, to get a checkup, things like that. But if you look at what goes up and down our coast here, we have all these, took out some of the names of the Men's Medical Center, Wellness Centers, and stuff. But if you pop on their websites, what you actually see is sex. lots of sex on here, okay? This is one of the preferred men's medical center in Fort Lauderdale. And you can have great sex at any age. They don't do anything more than this. They have a formula that they inject in the men's penises for erectile dysfunction, gives them an erection, very successful, and the guys go out with a smile on their face, but they haven't even touched the subject of, well, have you had any chest pain? How's your family history? Is there a family history of heart disease, cholesterol? None of that. They just give them an injection, charge them $1,200 for a box of 10 of these injections, which they use at home, and then they'll have perfect sex, but they'll die of a heart attack. So, again, I went through a couple of the websites, recapture, vitality, testosterone replacement. These are all buzzwords in urology. We do a lot of this stuff.
But when they think about men's health, all they think about is get me erection and let's move on.
That's right. So, it's not just about
I like this. Gender differences, it's not just having a penis, okay?
Do you guys know who that is? Anybody know? Does anybody know what movie that is? Come on. No, Kindergarten Cop. Come on, guys. It was a stupid movie that Arnold Schwarzenegger was in, but you know, this little kid, the whole movie, because boys have penises, girls have vaginas. His father was a gynecologist. That's all he knew about the differences, but it's not about that. It's a lot more. Men rationalize their medical symptoms, respond much higher in self-rated health. They feel that they're healthy if they're physically fit. We know from that control and self-reliance are part of the hegemonic, psyche of the males. And it's resulted in significant delays both in the coronary care unit when men present with heart attacks, with testicular cancer. I have these guys that come to me, because I do a lot of oncology too. They come to me, and as soon as they come in the room, there's an odor. And I know what to expect. I kind of know from this odor. And they'll say, Doc, it looks a lot worse than it feels. And I know what I'm dealing with. The odor and that statement, because they always say that. They take their pants. They have this big fungating mass coming out of their penis. Okay? And it's gross. It's festering. It's teeming. It's gross. I said, well, what were you thinking? and he's had, it didn't just appear overnight. It's been there for probably a year. Okay? This has happened, I would say about 2-3 times a year. 2-3 times a year this happens to us, that we see this person. But it's not only penile cancer, testicular cancer, heart disease, every major disorder, men kind of rationalize it. Because they're not used to being sick. They don't want to be sick. Even, avoidance of trying to get a guy to do a colonoscopy, even a rectal exam, to do a digital rectal exam for a prostate cancer. So I have to do it at age 50. Most men are recommended to have a rectal exam. They don't want to do that. They want to look for something else. They want to look for an easy way out. And this has resulted in actually a significant disparity between the mortality between men and women. Men die on average about 5 to 7 years earlier than women do. Across all ethnic groups, everywhere in the world you see this image. Women live longer. If you drill down the reasons why guys die earlier, so earlier on in life, in between 30 and 50, believe it or not, unintentional injury is huge. It's a huge thing. We'll talk about the unintentional injuries. But suicide is a buzzword these days. There are a lot of men that do commit suicide, and a lot more in the younger groups. But we are seeing it now in older groups of men as well. Obviously, in older age groups, heart disease and cancer are big things. But if you drill this down, if you go further, these are all reversible things. Obesity, heart disease. These are all reversible. Had men watched their cholesterol, taken care of themselves, not obesity, watching cigarette smoking, driving more carefully. Keep going with these slides. Obesity is a problem. It used to be a woman's problem, but men have done a great job of compensating. And so obesity is associated with type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular, a whole bunch of different things. 40,000 deaths a year in motor vehicle accidents. This is from Forbes magazine. If you guys ever get it's kind of a warped sense that the urologist has to look at this, but these are the top causes of death, occupational causes of death that people get. And it's mostly men's things. Logging industry, the ranchers, garbage men. If you look at, so this guy here, hit the thing again. So this is taken across the street from my house. Is it one more time? There's a little guy up there. He's on his roof. said, what third world nation are we in? A guy's standing on his roof, looking through the tiles and cleaning off things. He doesn't have a harness, there's nothing. I mean, he's just standing up there, I don't know what he's doing there, but that's across the street from my house. I said, listen, can you come down? So, he didn't want to come down. He had
Like,
this
what is
machine
he-
in his
what's he
hand,
on
I don't
the
know what he's
roof,
doing.
right?
He's cleaning his roof.
Right.
So we do kind of stupid things sometimes, and we don't think about it. Suicide risk, actually, as many people commit suicide in the United States as die from prostate cancer.
Wow.
It's a huge, huge number, and that's on the rise. Everywhere in the United States has been on the rise. And if you
Prostate
drill,
cancer for both men and female, or never
well,
mind.
for
Okay.
prostate,
Sorry.
mostly. So about 40,000 people die a year from prostate cancer. 40,000 die
I heard
from
it's a
suicide.
different type of cancer.
So, and most of these are, if you drill them down, they're all completely, stop for 1 second on that one. They're all completely reversible. Go back for 1 second. So this is a cross-sectional study from Australia. This was great. I found this, and basically, this is the disparity between men and women as far as their utilization of health services, as seeing doctors. And you could see from the ages of about 10, 15 years old to about 55, 60, men are completely under women. Women go not only for reproduction purposes, but for all other purposes. There is no male gynecologist. Women are programmed early on in life, see a gynecologist once a year, get your pap smear. Men do not do that, so they disappear until age 55, 60, when they start saying, well, my erections are no longer as good, having problems with my prostate, I can't pee as well as I used to. So that's what drives men in to the office. You can keep going, I'm sure this is some male sexual, so this is actually, these are the male sexual disorders. This is from Australia, oh no, this is from British Medical Journal. You can see actually this is exactly what we saw in the United States. Erectile dysfunction, this is per age group, goes up significantly as men get older. Believe it or not, and I'm giving you guys some background because there's a reason behind this. But the most common sexual disorder that men have is premature ejaculation. About 35% of men have it. This is obesity. You can keep going. And then just to say that there are a lot of reversible causes of morbidity for men later on.
That it can't
by
be
controlling
controlled.
lives. Right, but just getting them into the office is the problem there. And you can keep going. I think we're gonna stop there.
You want to stop?
So this was my idea, to develop a real, not one of these injection clinics, but for the University of Miami, we should have a full-fledged medical,
We were
male
talking
health
about
center.
that.
And that's what we did here in the
Right.
class. And the men's health center would be run both by urology and primary care, because there are a lot of correlations. Again, the male erection problems translate to heart disease, translate to stroke risk, translate to cholesterol, high blood pressure, diabetes.
It's a good predictor.
And so these would be the inputs. And then we have a whole bunch of different consulting services, psychiatry to prevent suicide, depression, cardiology, endocrinology, looking at testosterone production. And as men get older, above the age of 60, 50% of men have low testosterone levels. Nutrition and exercise to watch the dietary stuff. And then we have a variety of different consulting services. So this was the idea that,
You want to go?
yeah, so this is what we want to do. And that's the Lenore Center. That's eventually where we are probably going to put it. But it's a state-of-the-art multidisciplinary center, healthcare to men 18 years and older, develop and implement a rational, evidence-based. So a lot of these, you hear about it on the radio all the time, these pills and supplements and formulas. Nobody's been tested, nobody's ever really tested most of these things. And
And
there are potential risks.
they're allowed to advertise this even though there's no evidence base?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, they could say this men's health supplement it makes you feel great, and they have testimonials. It's always the same pattern. There's no data driving that, though. And so that's what we'd like to do at the Men's Health Center, is really just explore some of these. It turns out vitamin E and selenium were two elements that, and this is anecdotal, but they are two elements that in several studies were shown to prevent prostate cancer. Well, we did a study. It was a multi-institutional study across the United States looking at vitamin E supplementation and selenium compared to placebo groups. It turned out that actually, in the vitamin E group, there's a higher incidence of lung cancer. Didn't prevent prostate cancer, but higher incidence of lung cancer. Selenium did nothing. So that we just proved that. So these are the things that we will have the opportunity to do.
So where are you in this model?
Right now,
So,
well,
yeah.
I've got a big grant, actually a big donation yesterday
Wow,
So
congratulations.
to get us started, and so we're.
If we can
we have-
help you,
We have
we
3 or
were-
4 collaborators
If we can help you in any ways in terms of, you remember what I was talking about in terms of collaboration of
So what we did here, we talked about men not wanting to go see the doctors. We developed a website for men to log on, and they would log in with us, and
And
then
then
we
they
could
can do
monitor
it with
them.
a phone app as well, you
Right, we
know?
put a bunch of articles on there and informational stuff. They got into, the coolest thing, we developed a lounge so they could discuss, they could talk to each other on,
Okay.
what was the platform that we used?
I forgot on that part, but we were using a number of different, we were looking at a number of different
They
platforms.
could ask doctors
Chat.
questions, but the
Right.
problem was that I was getting questions all night, you know. They were sending me questions all night about, what happens if I have a little discharge now? And I'm like, listen, it's
But
too
you
much
really,
information.
an extension of the telemedicine, that you get, the whole idea is also that there's some reimbursement involved with it. And I think now with telemedicine getting approved by a number of different states, I think that'll change as well.
Actually approved on 2019, even any type of data, even an image that the patient sends to the doctor,
Yes.
it can be reimbursed, any
Yeah.
type of data. So
And
it's
that's
not
what's
just a-
been, that was holding it up before,
Exactly.
especially in the United States.
So I'm not gonna go into too much more
Yeah.
about myself, but I want to
Yeah.
lead into something else.
Okay,
Let me see if I have
what do you need now?
So, let's switch topics for a second, because what
Yeah.
time do you have until 8:30, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna let Elnaz get on in a second.
Okay.
So leading up to that, so one of the things that I do in urology is a lot of sexual medicine. And men, when they get erectile dysfunction, and we're talking about between 50% of men between 40 and 70 will develop it. A lot of them go onto the Viagra, Cialis, Levitra pathway. A lot of them go onto injections. A lot of these guys have serious medical conditions, and very often a lot of them have cancers and stuff, so they can't get erections no matter what they do. So there's a device that I can implant called a penile implant or penile prosthesis. And it involves placing 2 cylinders. I have pictures of it, it's just too big a file to send.
Okay, that's fine.
We implant it directly in the penis. There's a little pump in the scrotum, and there's a little reservoir that we put up under here, under the abdomen. And when they squeeze the pump, it cycles fluid, and they get an erection. Works beautifully. The satisfaction rates are very high. Patients and their spouses and their partners love these devices once they're implanted. It takes some time to get them to go for this, because they want to explore all the other options before they go for surgery. So the surgery goes very well. I've done about 2,000 of these implants in my career. The majority of patients do absolutely outstanding. But with any device that you put in the body, there's always an infection risk with these things. So these devices can get it, whether it's a penile prosthesis, whether it's a heart valve, or whether it's some type of other breast implant. There's all a small incidence of infection. So we have them do a number of things before the surgery to prevent the infections. But again, most of the guys, as has been my experience, most of the guys, when they're sitting in the office across from me, and I'm explaining the procedure, I'm explaining what they need to do, I'm giving them brochures and pamphlets of this, they're blank. They're just like, oh, I can't wait till I get my erection. I don't care whatever that guy's saying. Okay, fine. And their wives are usually taking down all the information, and then they'll remind them whatever. Stop your aspirin. Make sure that you go for your preoperative testing. Make sure, we usually start them on some to scrub their genitalia for about 2 or 3 days before surgery with a special soap, antibacterial soap, to prevent the bacteria from getting into the
Give them all
wound.
these different instructions.
All these instructions. And half the time, they don't remember any of it. Okay? A lot of times, they won't even show up for the day of the surgery. I'll call them up and, oh, I didn't know it was today. Well, they've gotten phone calls, they've gotten reminders, and their insurance has approved it. It's outrageous what happens. So, in an effort the problem that we have is men are terrible at their own health care. They are not good at following orders or recommendations. They kind of do what they want to do, and very often what this results in is significant. It pushes me back, because if somebody misses the surgical date or can't have surgery, well, that time limit that I gave them, that 2 hours or 3 hours that I allotted for that could have been